For those of you that don't know, if you watch the podcast every Wednesday around 1-ish, Pastor Franklin has a tendency to kind of name us. Usually Chris's is like this really encouraging thing, and usually for me is like, I'm just kidding, no. So Towering Teddy Bear has now become a relic of last week, and all of a sudden we had people on that I haven't seen in a minute, and they're like, oh yeah, Towering Teddy Bear, mm-hmm. I work with teenagers, I'm all about it, let's make it happen. So, like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about youth today, and obviously it's something I'm passionate about. In case you don't know, my name's Mike Ciolek, I'm the youth pastor here. So I think part of my job description is to love teenagers. Like, it just kind of, if you can't do what I do and not like teenagers. So with that being said, it's graduation Sunday. So if you know any high school students or, students that are seniors this year, we are like neck deep in graduation season. They're like every third day there's another graduation because there's 1,400 schools here. So with that being said, I want to invite any student that graduated this year to come on up on stage. Y'all can kind of spread out right along this way over here. Oh, I'm sorry, am I in your picture? I'm sorry, he was over there, I had to let it go. So, this is just some of our graduating class from this year. And that is amazing. And some of these students don't even go to Catalyst, which is even more amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's amazing.
But what I want to encourage you guys is they're out of high school now. Yeah. This is the most awkward transition of your life
so true.
Ever.
So true. Mm-hmm.
Everybody will always talk about middle school being the awkward years.
It's awkward, but not as awkward as when you have to leave high school and join adult life.
All of a sudden, mom and dad aren't paying for things anymore. And like, oh, you got your own job. You got to figure out what you're doing with your life now. And you're like, oh, everyone's assuming you have it all together. You don't. It's fine.
And it's okay that you don't have it all together, y'all. It's okay. It's okay.
But in a second, we're going to kind of go down the line here. I want to get everybody's name. And if you've got plans, cool. If not, also cool. Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing when I graduated. I was like, I am not going to school. Solid. But what I want to encourage you guys is, as a congregation, as you see them here, pray for them.
Yes.
Talk with them.
Please.
Get to know them. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get to the message because it's all going to be about youth. But
targeting
really
you.
So, for some of these students, they have been in the ministry longer than we have.
So true. Like two of them standing up here, Katie and Kylie, they not only started in your C3 Kids, they were like, they're like OG C3 Kids and then OG Catalyst. So they've
gone
been
through
here.
Multiple youth leaders, and they've stuck around when we came in, so I'm good with that.
It's amazing.
But they have been instrumental in what goes on at Catalyst. We couldn't do what we do without having students that do what they do. And for some of them specifically, talking about my OG Youth Worship team, know that when you start to take leadership in Catalyst as a student, like my expectations from you go from here to way up here. And I stop treating you like a teenager, and I treat you like an adult, and everything that comes with that. But I want to say thank you guys for serving, for having the hearts that you guys have for other students.
And then I do believe almost all of them standing up here have served in C3 Kids as well. And so they also have a servant's heart and serve.
Decided to come back.
And you know, Gabe decided to get a job. I mean, that job life.
Gas is expensive. All right.
So true.
So let's take an opportunity. We're going to go down the row here and just
So you get to know them.
say your name and then what you're planning to do afterwards. If you don't have a plan, I don't have a plan. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm Kylie, and I'm going to be
You might want to give it a break so people can scream because it's going to happen.
I'm going to be taking a year break and then picking up a second job.
Nice.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm Asher. And I'll be working over the summer and then going to WSU.
Man, I love it.
I'm Katie.
I love the red face. It just says it all. We love you.
And I'm going to be going into the Air Force.
Nice. Military. Hold on. There we go.
I'm Ian, and I'm enlisted with the Marine Corps. My ship date is September 6th.
September. Ian.
That's soon, man. That's real soon.
That's like right around the corner, Ian.
I'm Gabriel.
Give it a second, Gabe.
I'm taking a break.
Okay. I like it.
So before we send them on their way, I want to invite all of our youth leaders to come on up here. If you've served in Catalyst in the past, if you're a current Catalyst leader, I want to encourage you guys, come up here and let's pray for these students. Cam.
Pastor Franklin.
Come on, Cam.
Pastor Franklin, come on up. Brooke,
There you go.
Brooke, they called you out. Man.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pray for our students, and I just want to encourage all of you leaders to kind of lay hands on students and just pray for them as well. Dear Lord God, I want to thank you and praise you for giving us this opportunity to spend the time that we've given with these students. God, thank you for the blessing that they've been on the lives of us as leaders and us as the church. This church wouldn't function the same way it does without having these students, and God, we just want to thank you and praise you for bringing them to us. God, we want to ask that you give them guidance, direction, and purpose in life. God, make sure that they know that they are not alone. They are loved by you and loved by this church, no matter where they go, no matter what they do. God, these are your kids, and we give them over to you. God, use them for your plan and your purpose. God, give this church a heart for these students so that these students will always know that they are loved and they are valued. God, we want to thank you and praise you for all of these students. I want to ask all these things. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, you guys are off the hook. You guys can go have a seat.
Awesome. We have, wait, pause.
We do have gifts for you guys.
Sorry,
Totally spaced that
pause.
part.
Teenagers, stay. I apologize. Pastor Mike forgot.
Hey, that's on me because I
Yeah.
didn't ask Donovan to bring him up.
So we have a small gift for you. We know that going off sometimes you need a little bit of a smaller Bible and a little journal to go with it. This is something I'm going to challenge you to be bold, and I'm going to challenge you to step out when it's hard. When you get to that moment, I know when it was for me, like I had no idea where to go, who to turn to what's in your hands. Because that,
Amen.
and I'm going to challenge you guys, all you sitting out here, they need you to, one, be encouraging, two, accountability. Hold them accountable. But third, they need you guys to mentor. They need you to step up, get to know them, and walk alongside of them so they can be successful. We love you.
All right, now you guys are actually free to go. This is why I surround myself with leaders. This is why I surround myself with people who have a better memory than I do. It would be bad if I tried to do all this on my own. Yeah, 100%. I'm standing over here and I go, Pastor Mike, Pastor Mike. I was like, what? Look over and Donovan's there with a stack of Bibles. Thank God for leaders. So, I want to let you know that, like, every time I come up here on a Sunday morning, this always starts to feel kind of like a family barbecue. And I'm talking like the big family barbecue where everybody gets together. You got that crazy aunt and uncle that you're like, I don't really know you. And you're kind of weird. I don't know if I want to get to know you, but we're family, I guess. And as in between services, especially as it starts to get nice out, like you look out in the grass field and there's just like kids throwing balls around. Or in the Gaga ball pit. Or depending on what time, they're probably throwing balls around in here. It's fine. We love it. Where you got little kids running around or jumping off the stage. And I love it. But it starts to feel that way. And you've got adults that are just kind of standing around in little pockets. They're all talking about whatever adults talk about. Politics, money, trucks, I guess, for some people. Man, I'm glad you're back. But you have these adult conversations, and I realized I had an adult conversation the other day when one of my best friends came into town, like spur of the moment, let me know the day before he was coming in. And we're talking on the phone, trying to get all this stuff organized, and we're talking about investments. And he's like, well, if I get this job, then I get stock options. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that could be good depending on when they do this. And I'm like, we're boring people. When did all of a sudden, like, stock and, like, our future finances become something that we're like, oh, yeah, this is interesting conversation. This is a guy that we're buying mini bikes and romping them through the desert and, like, crawling outside of vans and they're moving. And, like, this is the guy that did all the dumb stuff with. Now we're talking about investments. I don't like adult conversations. It's just, I'll take it. But, I mean, it's not always a bad thing. When families get together, everybody gets to kind of commingle and get to know each other. And when it comes down to dinner time, let's face it, we all like food. I've never met a church person that doesn't like food. It's one of the reasons you get people into churches with food. Speaking of which, there's a bake sale afterwards. Let's get these kids to camp. Fair warning, this is going to be a very simple message, but I'm going to plug everything. It's just shameless the whole time, so be prepared for that. But we're talking about, like, when it comes time to dinner time, everybody sits down at the table, right? But if it's a big enough group, typically you have the adult table and you have a kids table. And realistically, we put all the kids at the kids table because they're like, well, they're going to make a mess. They're going to do this. We need to give them plasticware because Timmy's going to stab Jimmy with a fork if we give him a metal one. So let's not do that. And we don't want to get covered in Kool-Aid because they're going to spill it inevitably. But realistically, I've always seen more spills on the adult table than I ever did at the kids table. Adults aren't guarded, kids are. But we tend to separate. And for a minute, that's good because it allows the adults to have their adult conversations, the boring conversations. The conversations about what their life was like. You know, they're reminiscing about stuff that happened 25 years ago. Or, again, their investment options. Or who's still together and who got divorced from high school. Like, I've been to a lot of kind of gatherings of adults. These are all conversations that happen. And you got the kids' table, and they're talking about what they're going to be doing over the weekend. Or, like, what new video game they got. All of these sort of things. And we separate them off because it just logistically, it makes sense. Portions are smaller. Everything on the table needs to be a little more sturdy than at the adults' table. Adults' table is really nice. It's usually a tablecloth. They may have a centerpiece. They went, to the nines to get this all together, but the kids' table is just, Chinetware and Solo cups. I'm a huge fan of because I don't like dishes. But while it works out for a minute, they both tend to miss out on what the other one has to offer. What does it say to your kids when they don't ever know your stories? For as far as they're concerned, you've led an adult life your entire life. You're talking littles, and they don't know all the dumb things you did in high school And you're like, you don't need to know all the dumb things I did in high school. But they need to know, right? Because they need to know that you have experience in what you're talking about. Otherwise, they've got no reason to believe you. I mean, other than you're the parent, but because I said so only gets you so far for so long. And it's the same thing. The adults tend to miss out on the energy and the laughter and the excitement of having kids at the table. It's chaos. And you may have to watch the things that you say if you don't typically. Because last thing you want to do is have a kid going and spilling your dirty laundry to their Sunday school teacher. You know, I guarantee kids ministry, they've got some stories that some of the kids have told them. Chris and Katie are like, oh, yes, we do. All of you, hey, maybe pay for VBS. I'm not saying you, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. A little bit. I'm a little bit kidding. We're not going to blackmail you. We won't. This is why Pastor Franklin doesn't allow me to come up here very often. I'm just kidding. But I really want you guys to see what's missing. How much more enjoyable is it when you're at a table and it's everybody kind of mixed up? You don't get to have some of the conversations that you have, but think about the questions that kids ask when you start to tell stories of long before they were born. And in that sense, it'll spark other questions, or like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so did this. Well, you did the same thing. You're right, I did. You tend to look at things much, much differently. The hard part is that church is often the same way. I haven't been in church my entire life. I've only been in church since I was in high school, so I never got the kids' ministry experience. But we always called Sunday Big Church. So we're going to go to big church. And then even when you look at it, like, we've always called the main meeting space the sanctuary. I still do it to this day here. This is the sanctuary. And you got kids' rooms. Sanctuary, kids' rooms. There's a different level of what that means. Sanctuary is a holy place. It's a place where you get to meet God. That's a room where you get to cram kids in. That's not reality. I've seen what they do. That's just as much a holy place where these kids get to meet God as it is in here. It's at a whole different level. It's chaotic in there. It takes a special kind of person to want to do kids ministry, and I'd encourage all of you to be those special kind of people. I'm not. But you guys could be.
You know, youth are kids.
Yes, once they get to 12, 13, we're good. Below that, I struggle. They don't understand sarcasm. But when we start to paint this as big church, we tend to lose the welcomeness. When you start to look at a teenager and you say, hey, come into big church, they know that this isn't their place. Your church is on Thursdays, 6:30, right here. We get to have Catalyst on Thursday. That's your church. You guys get to kind of come be a part of this. And while that's not the idea, that's not what anybody comes out and says, is you don't belong here. That's oftentimes how it starts to feel. And I'm not trying to guilt anybody or anything like that, but it's the reality of churches. And I'm not even just saying this church, it's just churches in general. We encourage all of our students to pack the center. So you'll notice the majority of our students every Sunday are right there. And here's a little secret. At the start of the new school year, they're going to be packing a different part of the church. So if you're comfortable in your church or in your seat, sorry, I'm not. We tell them every Thursday, let's kick all the old people out of the seats. To them, I'm an old person too, so I'm not offending anybody. How come you don't get this stuff on Sunday? Security, can we grab Jaden? You got it. You got it. But I believe this system is starting to hurt us. This two-table system is starting to hurt us. And like we said earlier when we're talking about our graduates, it is the most awkward transition in our lives, really. Because they're at the kids' table this whole time. They get to go to Catalyst, they get to go to kids' ministry, all of these things. And then they graduate. And for some of them, right now, they're sitting on a ticking clock. They've got a month and a half, 2 months at this point, before we're like, hey, Catalyst, you're out. You can't be here anymore. Because we can't have adults in Catalyst that aren't serving. And in Catalyst, we require people to take a year off before they can come back. We want them to be able to experience the rest of the church, because otherwise everyone's going to serve at Catalyst because it's what they know. They've never had the big church experience. But we tell them, come to service on Sunday. And they sit down in the seats and they realize, I'm here, but this isn't my table. And that tends to put you in a place of like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what I should be doing. And that's tough. I can't go back to where I know. I can't go back to the kids' table. And it was already getting awkward in there anyways because we got a whole bunch of middle schoolers, and I'm 18. Statistically, depending on which stat you read from, 50% to 70% of graduating students leave the church. That is a huge number. Why is it? They don't have a seat at the table. Because we've got these two separate groups, they don't know where to fit in. But we're not going to be like that, right? No. That's not the church that we have. No. I love the fact that like anytime you see service going on here, you see students. Every time. It doesn't matter what it is. Like you got people handing stuff out, taking stuff away. Like Donovan is the entire reason why the graduates got their Bibles. But it's up to us as the adults to give them a shared experience of what church is. We want them to grow deeper in their faith. We grow deeper in our faith. We want them to serve. We serve. But we do all of this stuff by inviting them with us. It's all too often that I hear, and this is to no fault of anybody's, at all, but the youth and kids are our future. They're not. We're already the past. The kids are the ones, the students, the kids in kids ministry are the ones serving. They are the church that we are right now. Amen. It's up to us to help shepherd them. But they're the ones doing the work. But we've got to get there. At some point, we need to ask ourselves if separate tables are working anymore. Jesus answers us that question in Mark 10, verses 13 through 16. It says, one day some parents brought their children to Jesus so he could touch and bless them. But the disciples scolded the parents for bothering him. And when Jesus saw what was happening, he was angry with his disciples. Not just he was upset, he was angry with his disciples. And he said to them, let the children come to me. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like these children. I tell you the truth. Anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter it. Then he took the children in his arms and placed his hands on their heads and blessed them. Keep in mind, Jesus is having an adult conversation at this time. Again, he's talking about money and he's talking about divorce right before all this stuff happens. Can't think of a more adult conversation than that. But then when these children start to come up, when parents are bringing their kids, the good leaders that he's surrounded by are like, keep them away. He's doing adult stuff. Just, how dare you? He's busy. And Jesus stops what he's doing. It's like, no, bring them here. We want them here. They're the reason we're here. This is what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're prioritizing where we spend our time, where we spend our ministry. And I'm not saying cut out all other ministries and we only have kids and catalysts. That's completely unrealistic, and it would do more harm to the church than anything else, because then we only have a kids table. But I want everybody to see the importance that they carry. Important enough that Jesus made this a priority. But the fact that Jesus stops what he's doing and is like, are you guys serious right now? Really, like, you guys haven't picked up anything at all at this point that, like, I like kids. I want kids around. But he does. He sticks with it. We are required to serve students. We are required to serve kids. And then in turn, they're going to serve us one day. When we get to stop being the leaders, and we get to start being the sages of the people, and the sages in the lives of these students, we get to speak into their lives while they do the work of the ministry. If we don't pour into them now, it'll be too late to pour into them later. Some of our jobs isn't to move chairs around, isn't to set up tables, isn't to do any of this stuff. Save that for the strong backs. I'm going to tell you right now, teenagers, real strong backs. They get hurt for like 15 minutes and they bounce back like that. They're built like Rubbermaid. But it's our jobs to love them. It's our jobs to work with them, to encourage them, to bring them alongside of us. Paul continues to write on, or later on writes about kids indirectly in 1 Corinthians 12. It's verses 20 through 25. It says, yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. In fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest or least important are actually the most necessary. And the part that we regard as less honorable are those we clothe with greatest care. So we carefully protect those parts that that should not be seen, while the more honorable parts do not require that special care. So God has put the body together such that extra honor and care is given to those parts that have less dignity. This makes for harmony among the members so that the members can care for each other. What happens if a body part is missing? Can the body still exist? Yeah, for sure. I don't know why it wouldn't. Can it function? Yeah, it can definitely function. Can it accomplish good things? Yeah. But can it thrive? That's where things tend to get more difficult. We can function, we can do good things, we can even be everything our community needs. But doesn't God call us to be more? We're called to thrive. In order for that to happen, for the church to thrive, everyone needs a place at the table. Everyone. And I want you guys to see this, because this is literally the only point I want you guys to take away from this. I don't have 3 points. I don't have 16 bullet points. I don't have anything. I just have this one point because I think it's that important. Everyone needs a place at the table. And just as a simple encouragement, again, a shameless plug, how many of you guys have ever had that crazy aunt or uncle at the party that like bounces back and forth between the tables? I'm going to tell you right now, Brittany and I are that aunt and uncle. And I'm going to tell you, as the guy that gets to experience both tables, kids' table's more fun. But the adult table is just as important. If I spend all my time at the kids' table, I'm never going to grow up. And I become useless to those kids. I'm fun, but I have nothing to offer. But if I spend all my time at the adult table, I have everything to offer but refuse to give. So, my encouragement to you, no matter what it looks like, be that aunt and uncle. Be that person that splits both worlds. And that doesn't just mean come serve at Catalyst, although if you want to, Center of God's Will, Catalyst. If teenagers aren't your thing, you can get right beside the Center of God's Will and serve in kids ministry. Chris and I have been arguing back and forth about this, but I'm the one on stage this week, so. No, but seriously, I want to encourage you guys, even if you can't serve every week in one of these ministries, even if you're like, I cannot be around kids. They drive me nuts. I don't want to see them. They smell and they're sticky. They're sticky. I don't know why. It's weird. But serve them in some way, in any way that you can, whether it's you're going to pray for them regularly. I'm going to tell you right now, as one of the leaders of Catalyst, I covet y'all's prayer for our kids. If you don't like working with teenagers, you can't work with teenagers, you don't have the time, you have the time during the week to pray for these students. You have the time to pray for these kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, we have VBS coming up. Again, shameless plug. They need all hands on deck. I've been here for a couple of them so far, and it's insanity. It is a ridiculous amount of fun, but the more people we have, the more controlled it gets. So, if you haven't signed up, do so. If you have kids that aren't signed up to go yet, still open for sign up, 100%. This is our opportunity to serve the kids in our community. Everybody has a place, everybody has a purpose. When we start to mix the lives of kids and adults together, the energy in this room is drastically different. I guarantee, hey, Pastor Franklin, what's it feel like in here when the youth aren't over there?
Very grown up.
Yeah, it's weird, right? When we took them all to the retreat, the end of winter retreat, there was like no teenagers in here. The energy depletes. I mean, for a minute, there's nothing wrong with that, but even for some of you that are like, oh, thank God it's quiet in here, the kids aren't talking, whew. I guarantee you give it 2 weeks of not having those kids in here, you're going to be like, it feels weird in here. You're going to be like, we need to go somewhere that has some kids in it. I've been to churches where the median age is like 65. Hey. There's a place and a purpose for that kind of church, but where's the energy level in that church? You've got people having quiet conversations over coffee, but our kid's going to show up to that church. And again, there's a plan and a purpose for each of these, but I'm going to tell you right now, for our church, where we're at, the demographics we're trying to reach, you want to reach kids, you need kids. And you don't just need kids tucked away in a corner. You need kids in a place of prominence. Because even though they're a place, they're a part of the body that for some people has no honor or very little honor. In God's eyes, that's not the way he sees it. They have great honor. and it is up to us to guard them, but put them in a place where they can be seen. And not just seen as a problem, but seen as a solution to a problem. I can't go into a high school and be like, hey, you want to come to youth group? Unless I've got a reason to be there, I'm not going to be there very long. But I can be like, hey, Jaden, invite a friend to church. And he did. And all of a sudden, Catalyst is growing. And because Catalyst is growing, Sunday morning is growing. Because when you got the kids coming in, whether it's in kids ministry or Catalyst, guess what follows? Parents. Guess what follows when parents show up? Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Your Uncle Bob that you're like, ooh, Uncle Bob, I don't know if you should be here, but you need to be here. I think we all have an Uncle Bob. I don't know. I know I do. I love the man. He's weird. So when we allow students in, we allow them to bring laughter and energy. What does it look like when the church is served entirely by students? I'm going to tell you right now, for some people it is chaos. We've done quite a few youth takeovers. They do amazing. You give students a little bit of direction and a little bit of autonomy, and they will never disappoint. You still have to watch them, a little bit of autonomy. So what does it look like in our church when we've got youth on the worship team? We've got youth at the door greeting. We've got youth already serving in kids ministry. We've got youth that serve on production almost every week. But what's it look like when we give the youth in our church a legitimate voice? They have an opinion. And it matters. I love the direction that this church is going. We are moving in an awesome direction, and God is blessing every second of it. And that's in huge part to the vision that God has given Pastor Franklin. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a man that has a heart and a passion for students, for kids. I have yet to come up to him with an idea where he's like, no, we're not doing that for the kids. Anything that's going to get kids to know who Christ is, Pastor Franklin is like, let's go. So just know, moving forward, you're going to see more and more teenagers doing more and more as time goes on. Teenagers need to be here. Teenagers need to see what's going on so they know the heritage that we have to give to them. Not the heritage of our family life, but the heritage of what God has done through the lives of the people in this church. But they have to be here. They have to be a part of it. There's going to be spills. There's going to be messes. We're going to have holes in walls, exit sign lights broken. I wasn't going to say names, but it was Donovan. If something broke or something got broken in them, it was usually a Kreischer. They go hard if nothing else. But the beauty of it is we get to have this time together. We get to have this time together where we are unified as one. We get to pass the legacy and the heritage to the next generation, the current generation. And then at the end of it, they get to go back out and they get to throw the ball around. They get to still be teenagers. They get to still be kids. We can't throw all of it on them, but we can bring them to the table and allow them to sit with us. I'm going to tell you right now, the only reason I'm here is because I was invited to a table when I was in high school. Again, the median age at that church was probably 50s. But we had a small youth group that just continued to grow and grow and grow. And it was because people brought us to the table. We got to have ownership of what happens. There wasn't something that happened in that church that didn't have teenagers running it. And not everything, but we were always a part of it. And we always had an opinion. When we invest, that investment is always going to turn around. It's always going to come back to more than what we put in. So if we put in everything, what are we going to get back? All that God has to offer. So my encouragement, if you want the church to thrive, give a seat at the table to a student. And like anybody who knows me, especially if you've ever been a part of any of our Catalyst things, I'm a huge fan of challenges. I like to always leave with some sort of challenge for you guys to do when you leave. Today is not going to be any different. I can't stand up here and be like, hey, this is good, but don't do anything with it. We have a lot of social media presence, and it's growing more and more as time goes on. I want to encourage you guys on whatever social media device or service you use, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever, get on there and start a conversation with people in our church. What can you do to allow students to have a seat at the table? I want to have a conversation on there. I want to hear your guys' ideas, because we have a lot of really good ideas. But in my opinion, always, best idea wins. But I want to know what you guys are going to do as a church, what we are going to do as a church to serve our students. And the hard part is if we just say, hey, think about it, we think about it for 15 minutes after this is over, and we never see it again. But if you have to type it out, you have to take the effort to go put it online where everybody can see it. It takes a little bit more effort. It tends to ingrain it in your head a little bit more. I'm not a writer. I hate writing so much. Like physically writing. I can't even tell you the last time I wrote with a pencil. But I know when I have to type things out or I have to handwrite something, it sticks in there a little bit better. And it makes me have to think a little bit more diligently, especially if I know somebody else is going to be reading it. I'm going to tell you right now, my wife refuses to read any of my notes or anything like that. She's like, you don't even know what punctuation is? You've never seen it? You've never heard of it? But I want this church to be a church that surrounds our students. And I want this church to see how we surround our students. Let's be a church that's better than that 50 to 70% average. We can do better than this, and so far we have. But this is our opportunity to shine. Another little shameless plug. We've got Catalyst Camp coming up in August. You want a tangible opportunity to serve those students and also potentially get diabetes? We've got our bake sale going on in the back. I told you this is going to be all shameless plugs the entire time. But every bit of money that you guys buy from there is going straight to sending kids to camp. As of this morning when I checked, we have 27 students going. Which is great, because a week and a half ago we had 15. So, let's send those students to camp. We value them because God values them. Pray for them. Allow them to be a part of your lives. If you are somebody that likes teenagers, spend time with them. Don't just pray for them, pray with them. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to fight you. But if you come up to one of them and say, hey, I want to pray for you, they'll let you do it. Show how much you love them, show how much you value them, and pray with them. If you have the means and opportunity, Spend time with them. That's not just teenagers. Spend time with kids. Whatever that looks like. Obviously, talk to the parents, get the parents involved, but we want to encourage you guys, like, invest in this generation. We don't have much longer. They do. Let's speak into the lives of these teenagers. So with that being said, I just want to encourage you guys. We have awesome teenagers. We have awesome kids in kids ministry. Let's do everything we can to make sure that they know that. If you see a student, you see a kid, and give them encouragement today. Love on them if you can. But make sure that they know that they are loved by you, by this church, and by God by the time they leave. Let's make these kids sick and tired of hearing praise. If they don't like, oh, don't say something nice again, by the time they leave, we haven't done it well. So love on them, encourage them. If this is your first time here, man, I'm sorry. This is a weird Sunday for you to be here. But I am so glad that you're here. I want you to see how much we value students and how much we value kids. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you stop by the bake sale in the back. We want nothing left. But hey, sign up for VBS, sign up for youth camp, and we'll see y'all next week.